Hey my beautiful friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jules, and in this reading vlog I'm going to be reading summer romances. So the three books that I'm going to read for this vlog is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, and People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. These are my top romance authors, so I am very excited to read every single one of these. So let's get to it. So the first one I'm going to pick up is all the rave right now, and I'm sure you can guess what that is. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. When it comes to love, Emma is cursed. Every guy she dates finds his true love after they break up, but it turns out she's not the only one afflicted with this condition. His name is Justin, and his Reddit thread about being love's good luck charm has gone viral. Now that the two have come up with an ingenious plan, if they date each other, their curses will cancel out and they'll go on to find their soulmate. Only Justin wasn't supposed to be so unbelievably cute and hilarious. But when Emma's toxic mother shows up and Justin has to assume guardianship of his three siblings, they're suddenly navigating a lot more than they expected, including catching real feelings. Has fate finally brought the perfect pair together, or will their cure be way more hazardous than the curse itself? So I have heard that this book is outstanding, and I'm sure it's going to be. If this is as good as Part of Your World and yours truly, then this is definitely going to be a 5-star read for me. I will come back when I have some thoughts on this. I am having a good time with this. I am actually following along with, I kind of feel like I'm buddy reading with Gwen. So I recently joined Gwen's Patreon, Gwendolyn Kinzinger. And so you know when you join someone's Patreon, usually you get exclusive like things that they don't share to the public or whatever. So one of the things that Gwen did is she did a chapter by chapter review of this. So she literally would read a chapter and record her thoughts, and then read a chapter, record her thoughts. So I have this video up, and I'm reading a chapter, and then I'm listening to her thoughts, and I'm reading a chapter, listening to her thoughts. So it's kind of like I'm just doing a little virtual buddy read with her, and I'm loving it. I'm having a great time with it. Emma sees this Reddit ad. Well, her friend brings it to her attention, this Reddit ad. They both have similar problems. Everybody they date ends up finding their true love after they break up with them. So he has this Reddit ad, and she messages him and just is like, hey, I have the same problem. And so then they kind of just start chit-chatting back and forth on messages, and they send pictures of each other, and they're obviously not in the same area. So Emma and her best friend are travel nurses, so they travel together, and they only stay in one area for usually like around 6 weeks, and then they just travel somewhere else. So they're not even close to where he's at. So he's in Minnesota, but they're set to go to Hawaii for 6 weeks, to be leaving in like a few days. Justin's friend tells him, he's like, oh, well, hey, if she has the same problem and you have the same problem, you guys should just date each other and then break up, and then that'll just break your guys' curse, and then you will find your love. They were trying to think about hatching up this plan, like how long would it take? They, you know, how many dates would they have to go on before they broke up, and all this. And so he's like, okay, he's like, so I need to go somewhere. I need to be there probably at least a few weeks or so. He's like, well, it's too expensive to go to Hawaii. Contact me when you get back from Hawaii. And so in the meantime, he's like messaging her, and he's like, I think we should get to know each other, because, you know, even though we're going to start dating when you get back, he's like, you know, we should probably get to know each other. So they start talking, and they get to know each other. Emma decides she wants to go to Minnesota. So she talks her friend into going to Minnesota. So this guy's renting his cabin, and they show up at his place, and he has this like ginormous place that he lives at, and he's renting out this little cabin, but they have to take a boat to get to their cabin. So he sends her a survey monkey before their first date, and so it says, congratulations on your upcoming date with Justin. Your preferences are important, so he'd like to know what you think. Please complete this questionnaire by 9 o'clock tonight. And it has preferred time of day for our date, and it gives her options to check what activities interest you, and has hiking, dinner, a movie, a museum, day on the lake, other things. And then it has food preferences and gives her items. So she has all these like lists to check, and then after she sends it back, he sends her like an Evite, and it says, Please join Justin at the address you provided, 11 a.m. sharp, for a surprise activity, lunch, and conversation. Please wear long pants. It was just cracking me up. So it's just fun, them getting to know each other on this date they went on. So after their date, Maddie's supposed to bring the boat back and pick, which I was laughing hysterically. So they have to dock this boat. So when Maddie brought her over to drop her off on her date, she couldn't figure out how to get the boat docked. It was hilarious. I am back with an update. So I went back to check my clips to see where I was at so I could come back and update you from like where I was at, and realized that one of my clips has no sound. So I apparently forgot to turn on the mic. I almost said microwave. So I apparently forgot to turn on the microphone. So if the clip before this abruptly stopped, that's why. I'm having issues today with that. I literally recorded a whole book haul with no sound. So I'm just having all the technical difficulties the last couple days. Anyway, so they have gone on their date, and he goes to drop her back off so Maddie can pick her up, and lo and behold, her mother shows up. So her mother, Amber, shows up because she gave her address to send her this thing from her childhood, and apparently instead of mailing it, she decided to just come and bring it herself. She hasn't seen her for a couple years. So the house that they're staying in is like a rented cabin from this guy who lives in this big ginormous house. He's obviously very wealthy. So when her mom showed up, that's the house, that's the address, the main address, and that is where she showed up. And so obviously she takes it upon herself to introduce herself and just get to know their landlord, whose name is Neil. And yeah, apparently she's just going to stay with him. Apparently her mom is kind of like good at doing that, like hopping around, staying with just whoever. Maddie and Emma end up finding out that their landlord, Neil, who her mom is now hanging out with, is actually the head surgeon at the hospital they're working at. So now they are worried that Emma's mom is going to mess everything up for them, because apparently she doesn't have a good track record with men, and they're concerned that it is going to affect their jobs. So we're just following along with Justin and Emma on their dates. They're basically their contract, that I guess, if you will, that they're doing is they're going to date, they're going to go on 4 dates, they're going to kiss, and then they're going to break up. This is probably a spoiler, so spoiler, you can skip ahead if you want. Justin's mom is going to be going to prison for embezzling money from a nonprofit that she was working at. So Justin is now going to be moving back home to take care of his younger siblings. So his mom and her friend end up going out drinking like before she's due to go to jail, and there is a hilarious drunken mom moment that involves some baby trash pandas. So it was just so funny. It had me cracking up. Hi friends, I am back with my final thoughts on Just for the Summer. I can't go into a lot of details about the last like 40% of the book without giving a bunch of stuff away. But just know that there are happy times, sad times, self-reflection, self-destruction, family surprises, and yeah, just a whole lot packed into this book. So I did really enjoy this, and I ended up giving this 5 stars. And yesterday we had the book club discussion. So the back of the book actually has book club discussion questions. So Gwen's Patreon read this for the month of May, and we just had our discussion over it last night. So I also do love that in the back of the book, it's like a reading group guide, but it has a Q&A with Abby Jimenez. You won't want to read that part of it until you read the book, because it does give you spoilers of it. But then when you read those Q&As, you're like, oh, so that's why she did that. So I really do enjoy that. But yeah, overall, it was a great time. Highly recommend. Pick it up if you have obviously not read Part of Your World or Yours Truly. You would want to read those first, since this is the 3rd in the series. So since I did go ahead and get the paperback copy of this, I went ahead and picked up the paperback of Part of Your World and Yours Truly. And I am a little bit annoyed that these are not the same size. Why? Just why? Not only is it shorter, it's skinnier. Like, I just don't understand why we can't make books the same size. Like, how hard is this? The next book I'm going to pick up for this vlog is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I have only read one other book by her, which was Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating. Loved it. It was a fantastic time. So when I saw this, I was like, yes, I definitely have to get this, because if it was as good as her other one, then I'm really going to enjoy this. I've also heard a couple other people have read this recently and really enjoyed it. So I'm excited to get to this one. Let me tell you what it's about. Says Anna Green thought she was marrying Liam Weston for access to subsidized family housing while at UCLA. She also thought she signed divorce papers when the graduation caps were tossed and they both went on their merry ways. 3 years later, Anna is a starving artist living paycheck to paycheck, while Liam is a Stanford professor. He may be one of 4 heirs to the Weston Foods conglomerate, but he has little interest in working for the heartless corporation his family built from the ground up. He is interested, however, in his $100 million inheritance. There's just one catch. Due to an antiquated clause in his grandfather's will, Liam can't claim the money until he's been happily married for 5 years. Just when Liam thinks he's in the home stretch, pressure mounts from his family to see this mysterious spouse, and he has no choice but to turn to the one person he's afraid to introduce to his 1%er parents, his unpolished, not-so-ex-wife. But in the presence of his family, Liam's fears quickly shift from whether the feisty, foul-mouthed, paint-splattered Anna can play the part to whether the toxic world of wealth will corrupt someone as pure of heart as his surprisingly grounded and supportive wife. Liam will have to ask himself if the price tag on his flimsy cover story is worth losing true love that sprouted from a lie. Should be interesting. I will come back when I have some thoughts on this for you. Hello, I'm back, but not with a midway check-in. I read the whole book. I recently did this with another vlog I'm working on too. Like, I completely burned through this book in like 2 days, and I had other stuff that I was doing. We only had like 1 week of the month left, and I had books I needed to get read. I was just burning through books, but I also have so many vlogs that I'm working on that I was like, oh, I just didn't update them. I just forgot. So here we are with just a review of this book. So I did read this for Bring Your Own Book for Gwen's Patreon. So if you're not a part of Gwen's Patreon, feel free to join it. It's a wonderful place to be. So for the month of July, we got to pick a paradise theme or tropical themed book and read it. And then we were discussing it. So we actually just had the discussion last night. Let me start by saying I absolutely love this book. 5 stars. This book was so good. If you do not like cussing or you do not like spice, this is not the book for you, honey child. But that's okay. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But I loved this book. So it starts off, Anna married Liam, which he goes by a different name at the beginning because I guess she knew him by a different name. So one of her friend's brothers was like, you should just marry him so that you can get free housing. So that she could, so for college, so she didn't have to pay for housing. She ended up marrying this guy on paper so that she could live in this housing for free. There was supposed to be a divorce paperwork that had the divorce in there when the divorce was going to be finalized. A stipulation of him getting his inheritance was that he had to be married for 5 years. So his family wants him to bring her to his sister's wedding. They're like, why would she not come? She is part of the family that we've never met. You need to bring her. Where has she been? So he's just had all these excuses of why she has never been able to come to any of these family things. They're billionaires, but his dad wants him to be a part of this company that he doesn't want any part of. And there is also a backstory that goes into all this. So he has to go to Anna and ask her, hey, will you pretend to be my wife, even though you are my wife still? And she's like, what? She thought they were divorced. She never looked at the paperwork. And he's like, didn't you go to a lawyer with the paperwork? Didn't you sign all that? And yeah, so they're still married on paper. And he's like, I need you to do this for me. I'll pay you however much money you want to come and be my wife. Even though she is his wife. So she has to go and pretend that this whole time, this last 5 years, they have been married. And she's been living as a rich wife, which she obviously is not. Because she has no money. She just lost her job. She's broke as heck. And so, yeah. So they obviously know nothing about each other. And she's like, well, yeah, I need the money. I'll do it. And so she is very feisty. She cusses. She's funny. hilariously funny. The banter between them, and he's just very kind of like reserved, kind of like just wants to like fly under the radar with this and get this over with. And he's like, oh man. They go to this island, and yeah, the pretending has to start happening. And so she goes. His father is an absolute beehole, like the worst of the worst human beings. He is just not a good person. And obviously she sees that. So he's not real comfortable with her giving her like his backstory of everything that, you know, their childhood, what they went through with their dad. Like all the kids are there. The whole family's there. A whole bunch of toxic stuff goes on. But in the midst of it, you have her who's just like, this is crazy. Like these people are messed up. So anyway, so she's having to pretend all this because there's a stipulation that if it's falsified, if they find out that it's falsified in any way, then like people lose their inheritance, not just them. The physical tension between them that is building and getting stronger and stronger, and them not having, you know, they're trying to like resist, and then, you know, they start connecting, and the talking and the feelings and falling in love, all that. It's great. Definitely recommend. So the last book I am picking up for this vlog is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I have read from Emily Henry before. The only book of hers that I have read so far is Happy Place, and I loved it. It was one of my top books of the year last year. So this is the UK cover, and I decided that I liked these better than all the others, so I ended up buying all of her books in paperback. The only thing that I hate about them is that a couple of them are just a smidge different in size, and then one of them, funny story, the most recent that's out, I haven't read it yet, is ginormous compared to these. It's a paperback, but it's big, so they don't match, but whatever. Anyway, this says, 12 summers ago, Poppy and Alex meet. They hate each other and are pretty confident they'll never speak again. 11 summers ago, they're forced to share a ride home from college, and by the end of it, a pact is formed. Every year, one vacation together. 10 summers ago, Alex discovers his fear of flying. Poppy holds his hand the whole way. 7 summers ago, they get far too drunk and narrowly avoid getting matching tattoos in New Orleans. 2 summers ago, it all goes wrong. This summer, Poppy asks Alex to join her on one last trip. Could this trip make them realize they're not just friends after all? I'm excited to read this one, and I promise when I do start this, so I'm not starting this for probably a week because I have a couple Christmas cozies I have to finish up for Christmas in July, and then I have a Goosebumps readathon that is happening the first week of August. So my goal is to pick this up after that, or sometime in between if I have time. But I promise I will do my very, very best to come back and give you a midway update on this book. I am back with thoughts on this book. So I am having a really good time with this. I am about 40% through page 145. So it is jumping back and forth between this summer and then like 12 summers ago, 11 summers ago, 10 summers. So it bounces back and forth, and we're getting closer and closer and closer. So obviously we know something happened 2 years ago, and Poppy and Alex have not talked for 2 years. And then the first chapter of this was kind of weird for me because it says 5 summers ago, but it doesn't really have anything of any significance in it. It's just like them like hanging out on one of their vacations. So I'm just like, okay. So I don't know if we were just kind of getting a glimpse of like what their vacations like were at, you know, when they were like close friends. But then it jumps to this summer, and she's at work. So Poppy's like a travel blogger, and she basically works for a company, R&R, that she goes and takes free vacations and basically promotes them and gets people to book and take vacations. And she's just kind of in a meh place. Like she's not excited about going anywhere or doing anything. And like one of her coworkers, which I think is like one of her friends, is like, what makes you happy? And she's like, Alex, her friend. And so she just randomly decides to reach out to him and be, you know, and just kind of say hey and see if he responds, and he does, and then they talk a little bit, and then she's like, how would you feel about going on vacation? So she feels like this is the only chance she's going to get to connect or try and reconnect with her friend. It just bounces back and forth, and we get stories of like when they first met and like didn't have any connection or like each other. They initially met at like a orientation for college, and it was weird and awkward, and they never talked the whole school year. And then the next year, somehow he must have known one of her friends, and like they ended up like carpooling to like a vacation destination and not realizing that that's who it was. And so they've just kind of, and then like after that trip, then they started becoming friends. So like every year, and then they started getting closer, and then they started taking these trips together. We're going from the very beginning and getting a break in between, and like currently their trip they're on now, and then flashbacks of all these other trips. So eventually we're going to get to that point to see what happened to break up their friendship and why they didn't reach out to each other. But anyway, so I'm having a pretty good time with it so far. I am going to put this down for just a bit because I have another book that I need to finish. It's the last day of July, and I have one book that I'm finishing for my Cozy Mystery Christmas in July vlog. So I need to finish that, and then I'm gonna get back to finishing this so that I can wrap up this vlog for you. So I will be back when I have this finished with my final thoughts. Hello, sweet friends. I am back with an update and my final thoughts on this book. I really had a good time with this. I loved it. I did not love it as much as Happy Place. So yeah, I actually enjoyed going back to like the different, so it jumps back and forth between some of the vacations they took in the past and then current vacation that they were taking. And it was building its way back to, you know, when everything went wrong. And it's funny because when we got to that part, I was expecting there to be some like big blow up or some like super shady something that happened that like would force them apart. No, it wasn't that. It was something very stupid and not even that big of a deal. Like, I was like, what? I was like, so y'all didn't talk for 2 years because of this. Y'all were just stupid and just didn't communicate because of this. Like, what? So I was a little disappointed with that reveal, that it wasn't, I don't feel like it was something that they couldn't have got past, or that one of them couldn't have just, you know, broken the silence and had conversations. So that was kind of silly to me. But overall, it was a really good time. I enjoyed it. So I am giving this one 4 stars. So it has been a minute. I have been working on this vlog for like 2 months. So give me just a minute and I'm going to recap. I mean, y'all probably know, but we'll do a quick recap of what I thought of all my books in this vlog. Okay, so we have Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, 5 stars, had a fabulous time with it. The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren, 5 stars, had a fabulous time with it. And People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, 4 stars, did have a fabulous time with it. Iffy on some of the reasonings behind their relationship. These, again, are 3 of my favorite romance authors. Highly recommend. So that is it for this vlog, friends. Let me know in the comments below, what summer romance books did you read this summer? Did you have any favorites? Are there any that you recommend that I pick up that are not by these authors? Because let's be honest, I'm picking up any books by these authors. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. Subscribe to my channel if you are not. And until my next video, friends, be yourself, be awesome, be kind.